just pick things up.
We are live.
All right. Well, hey, folks. We've started a little bit early. We're just trying to test out some audio issues here. Hopefully, we'll get this all figured out. So just bear with us for a few minutes, but we'll get started. And it sounds like we actually have our audio back.
So, Captain Eric, we may want to give everyone a few minutes to log on, since I think everyone will be back on our channel looking for this video at 10:30.
Excellent.
So maybe we can just start by reviewing some of the early introductory content that we wanted to share on our last attempt.
Sure. Well, let's make this take two. So, welcome to Breakfast by the Bay. Again, I'm Captain Eric. I have Katie and Grania with me trying to solve all our tech problems here. And our Breakfast by the Bays are sponsored by 11th Hour Racing. So I'd like to give them a nice big shout out. If you're coming into us from a school, we'd love to hear where you're coming from. So if you can just give us your school name in the comment section, that way we know who we're reaching. So as we're getting a little bit closer here, I'm just going to wait for a high sign from my gang to let me know when to go. And I think we're looking good. It sounds like everybody's got audio this time. That works a little better. And I think we're ready to go. So today we are talking a little bit, or at least we're going to get started talking about the water quality and the water chemistry of the bay. So the very first thing that I want to do is not even talk about really the water chemistry. I want to talk about the bay itself. So if we think that this is the bay right here, we have to think about the fact that the bay goes from up here at the top all the way down to the bottom. We call this the water column. So if you can imagine a column of water from the very top to the very bottom. Now, a lot of people might think that the water in the bay is all the same, but there can be a really big difference from the water here at the top to the water here down at the bottom. What I like to think about with the bay is I like to think about the bay as a bottle of Italian dressing. So if you look, you can see our Italian dressing isn't the same top to bottom. It has layers. So there's a layer here at the top, then maybe there's kind of a little bit of an intermediate layer, and then a layer at the bottom. Now the bay works just like that. There are big differences between the water at the top of the column and the water at the bottom. So what could those differences be? Well, number one is the temperature. So temperature is a really important part of our water quality. And I think everybody can guess, our bay is heated by the sun. So the sun is up here and its rays are coming down and its rays are hitting the very top of the water. So that top of the water is getting warmer from the heat of the sun. That heat isn't reaching the bottom. So down here, that sun isn't really warming it so much. So also, we want to think about the oxygen in the water. Now, oxygen is created by the little tiny plants that live in the water. Now, like all plants, they need sunlight. So they can't grow down here at the very bottom. They have to be somewhere up near the surface. And they're actually scattered, very tiny little things called phytoplankton up here near the surface. We actually call that zone the phytozone, or planktonic zone. So that's where most of our oxygen is created, and everything that's alive needs oxygen. The other big chemistry thing we're going to talk about is the salinity, or how much much salt is in the water. Now we know that the bay is a mixture of fresh water that comes down off of the land, flows out into the bay from our rivers and our streams, and salt water that's coming into the bay from the Atlantic Ocean. So that salt water really sets up a situation where those different parts of the water column really can't mix together very well. And they can't mix together because the water is a different density. So we're going to take a little bit of an experiment. This water here, this blue water, is very salty water. So we're going to fill that up a little bit. Now, we're going to take a little bit of this green. Now this is actually fresh water. We're going to pour this in. And if you can see, they didn't really mix together very well. Maybe if I hold it back here, up here, you can see that the green water and the blue water didn't really mix together. As a matter of fact, if I was to take this red water, which is salty, but it's not as salty as the blue water, and I was to put that in here, I'm betting that we can make another layer. And this right there is really what the bay is going to look like. So there's going to be a very salty area down near the bottom. There's going to be a mixed area of less salty water. And then the top of the water is going to be the freshest. It's all got salt in it, but these areas don't mix together very well. So if we remember, all that oxygen was up here at the top. And if it can't mix down to this level, that means that maybe there's no oxygen down at the bottom. And that actually can happen sometimes. But luckily, just like we can take our bottle of Italian dressing and shake it up and make it all one type, the same thing happens in the bay. When the wind blows, it creates waves. When the tide is strong, it creates big currents throughout the bay. And those currents help to mix up our bits of water. And over time, they'll actually bring the oxygenated water down to the bottom. And that way, all the animals and all the plants or all the animals that live down on the bottom will actually have enough oxygen to survive. So when we look at water quality, we have to look at the top, the middle, and the bottom. So over the course of the next few sessions, we're probably going to take a look at some of the equipment and some of the stuff we do in order to measure the water quality at all three levels. So I hope that's been a fun little experiment and maybe got you to think about the bay in a 3D way. And I hope you all come back next week for our next edition of Breakfast by the Bay. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.